Right now, somewhere in the world, someone you've never met is making a decision that will quietly change yours. They don't know your name, they've never spoken to you, they don't even need to know who you are. Because they aren't trying to control you, they're controlling the environment around you. And once the environment changes, people almost always change with it. The strange part is, you usually don't notice. You simply call it your own choice. Think about the first decision you made this morning. Not the big one, the very first one. Which notification did you open? Which app did you tap? Why did your thumb move there instead of somewhere else? It probably felt automatic, natural, almost invisible. But that's exactly what makes it so fascinating. The most powerful influences in your life rarely feel like influence. Imagine walking into a room with two identical chairs. One is placed directly in front of you. The other is pushed quietly into the corner. Nobody tells you where to sit. Nobody gives you instructions. Almost everyone chooses the first chair, not because it's better, simply because it's easier. Now imagine the same invisible principle applied not to chairs, but to food, money, news, politics, relationships, entertainment, even your beliefs. What if the biggest decisions in your life aren't controlled by force, but by convenience? This idea sounds almost too simple until you realize how often it appears. Supermarkets spend millions deciding exactly where products should sit on a shelf. Streaming platforms carefully choose which movie appears first. Social media companies test thousands of different button colors, notification standards, and recommendation systems. Not because they enjoy experimenting, because tiny changes in the environment can quietly influence millions of people at once. And history suggests something even stranger. Humans have been making decisions this way long before smartphones, long before advertising, long before money even existed. Because the mechanism wasn't invented by technology, it was built into your brain hundreds of thousands of years ago. But no one understood just how powerful it was, until a young psychologist accidentally revealed it in a laboratory, with nothing more than a few simple lines drawn on a piece of paper. And what happened inside that room changed psychology forever. In 1951, a young psychologist named Solomon Asch invited several college students into a small laboratory. The experiment looked almost ridiculous. There were no machines, no complicated equipment, no electric shocks. Just a few chairs, a handful of strangers, and a sheet of paper with 4 simple lines. The volunteers believed they were taking part in a vision test, nothing more. 1 line appeared on the left, 3 lines appeared on the right. Their task was almost laughably easy. Choose the line that matched the first one. A child could answer correctly. And that's exactly why Ash chose it, because the real experiment had nothing to do with eyesight. One by one, the people in the room gave their answers. The first person chose the wrong line, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. Every single one confidently gave the exact same incorrect answer. The volunteer looked around the room. Surely someone would correct them. Nobody did. Everyone agreed. Now it was their turn. Imagine yourself sitting in that chair. You know the answer. You can see it. It's obvious. Would you trust your own eyes, or would you trust everyone else? Most people believe they know exactly what they would do. They imagine themselves smiling politely, choosing the correct answer, and wondering why everyone else got it wrong. That's what almost every participant expected too. But reality turned out to be far stranger. Nearly 3 out of every 4 people abandoned the answer they knew was correct, at least once. Not because they became blind, not because they suddenly forgot how to compare 2 lines, but because something ancient woke up inside their minds. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans survived in small groups. Being accepted wasn't simply comforting, it was survival. If your tribe believed danger was nearby, you ran. If your tribe stopped to eat, you ate. If your tribe moved, you moved. Questioning the group wasn't just uncomfortable. Sometimes it was deadly. Natural selection rewarded those who stayed with the tribe. Generation after generation, your brain became extraordinarily sensitive to one simple question. What is everyone else doing? That question is still running today. Only your tribe no longer consists of 30 people around a campfire. Now it's millions of strangers hidden behind screens. Every trending video, every bestseller list, every restaurant with a 2-hour waiting line, every product labeled most popular, every headline saying millions of people have already. They're all speaking to the same ancient survival system. And here's what makes this so remarkable. Most companies aren't trying to convince you that their product is the best. They're trying to convince you that everyone else has already chosen it. Because once your brain believes that, it quietly begins changing your decision before you've even realized one was being made. But conformity was only the first layer of the puzzle, because psychologists would soon discover something even more unsettling. Sometimes, people don't simply follow the crowd. Sometimes, they obey authority, even when every part of them knows they shouldn't. And the next experiment became one of the most disturbing in the history of psychology. For a long time, psychologists believed the biggest influence on human behavior was other people. Then, economists discovered something even stranger. Sometimes, you don't need another person at all. You only need to rearrange the room. Imagine walking into a cafeteria. You're hungry. You haven't decided what to eat. On one side, fresh fruit, salads, water. On the other, chocolate cake, French fries, sugary drinks. Now imagine someone quietly switches their positions overnight. Nothing disappears, nothing new is added. Every option is still available. The only difference is what your eyes see first. Would that really matter? In the early 2000s, researchers began testing this exact question. Schools, hospitals, office cafeterias, company dining halls. Again and again, they found the same pattern. Move healthy food closer, people eat more of it. Place desserts first, dessert consumption rises. Put water at eye level, water sales increase. No rules changed, no speeches were given. No one was forced to do anything. The environment changed, and thousands of decisions quietly changed with it. Richard Thaler, the economist who would later receive the Nobel Prize, gave this idea a name: nudge. A nudge doesn't eliminate your choices, it simply makes one of them easier. Imagine walking down a path in a park. There are two directions. One is smooth, wide, well lit. The other is steep, covered in mud. Technically, you're free to choose either one. But almost everyone takes the easier path. Not because they were manipulated, because the environment gently suggested it. Now replace the park with your phone. Every icon, every button, every notification, every autoplay feature, every recommended video. Someone decided exactly where those things should appear. Not randomly, not because it looked nice. Because billions of interactions have taught designers something remarkable. Tiny changes create enormous differences. Changing the color of a button can increase clicks. Moving one option a few centimeters higher can influence millions of choices. Removing a single extra step can completely change human behavior. And here's the unsettling part. Most of these decisions happen so smoothly, you never experience them as pressure. You experience them as preference. You don't think, the interface guided me here. You think, I wanted this. That's what makes nudges so powerful. The best influence doesn't feel like influence, it feels like freedom. But then scientists began asking a disturbing question. If the environment can shape your decisions before you're even aware of it, then when does a decision actually begin? Does it start when you consciously choose? Or does your brain begin choosing before you even know there's a choice to make? One neuroscientist decided to find out. What he discovered started a debate that is still dividing scientists today. For centuries, people assumed one simple thing: First, you decide. Then, your brain tells your body what to do. It feels obvious. You choose to raise your hand. And then you raise it. Case closed. But in the early 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet began wondering if that story was actually true. His experiment looked almost absurdly simple. Volunteers sat in a quiet laboratory. Electrodes measured the electrical activity inside their brains. In front of them was a clock with a single dot spinning around its face. Their instructions were almost effortless. Whenever they felt the urge, move your finger, nothing more. No right answer, no wrong answer, no pressure, just make a completely free decision. At the same time, remember the exact moment you first became aware of wanting to move. Simple, or so it seemed. When Libet compared the brain recordings with the participants' answers, he found something nobody expected. The brain began preparing the movement before the participants reported becoming consciously aware of deciding. Not minutes before, not even seconds. Just a fraction of a second. But enough to raise a question that scientists are still debating today. If your brain begins preparing an action before you're consciously aware of deciding, then what exactly is consciousness doing? Some researchers argue that consciousness is still essential. Perhaps it has the power to stop an action at the last moment. Libet himself called this the veto. Others believe conscious awareness plays a different role entirely. The debate is far from settled, but almost everyone agrees on one thing. Your conscious thoughts are only a tiny part of the brain's activity. Long before an idea reaches awareness, your brain has already been comparing memories, predicting outcomes, weighing emotions, recognizing patterns, filtering possibilities. Billions of neurons are constantly working beneath the surface, without asking for your permission. Think about driving home after work. Sometimes you arrive and barely remember the journey. You stopped at traffic lights, turned at intersections, avoided other cars, reacted to pedestrians. Yet much of it happened almost automatically. Your conscious mind wasn't absent, but it certainly wasn't controlling every tiny decision. The brain is remarkably good at running on autopilot, and that's usually a gift. Without it, even making breakfast would be exhausting. But automatic systems have one weakness. They rely on patterns, and patterns can be learned, not only by your brain, but by machines. Every search you make, every pause while scrolling, every video you finish, every headline you ignore, every product you almost buy, leaves behind a tiny signal. One signal means almost nothing. 1,000 signals reveal a habit. 1,000,000 reveal a pattern. And patterns can be predicted. For the first time in history, technology wasn't simply responding to human behavior. It was beginning to understand it. Not perfectly, not completely, but well enough to quietly influence what came next. And once prediction became possible, the race was no longer about understanding people. It became about capturing the one resource that every decision depends on: your attention.